Item: SCP-1099. Object Class: Euclid. Special Containment Procedures. SCP-1099-A is held at Biological Research Area 25 in a secure 300-gallon double-walled polymer storage tank. All experimentation must be overseen by at least one Level 3 or higher researcher and one Hazmat Response Specialist. All personnel, excluding D-Class, entering the containment area require Class 8 hazmat protection. Any volume of SCP-1099-A exceeding 300 gallons is to be rendered inert and disposed of at the end of each experimentation session. All SCP-1099-B and SCP-1099-C specimens are to be destroyed at the conclusion of each experimental session. Any and all equipment and/or personnel leaving the containment area are to be decontaminated using a sodium chloride solution of 22% or higher salinity. Description: SCP-1099-A is chemically a type of water, H2O, which exists in a liquid crystal form, approximating an atomic arrangement found in Ice-16. SCP-1099-A retains this arrangement well outside laboratories conditions. SCP-1099-A is a near-perfect thermal and electromagnetic insulator, maintaining a temperature between 20.4 to 20.6 degrees Celsius despite attempts to apply or remove heat. SCP-1099-A is almost entirely chemically inert. All tested samples of SCP-1099-A have shown zero dissolved solids and no chemical impurities. When introduced to fresh water, SCP-1099-A will form a nearly invisible cohesive layer on the surface. SCP-1099-A is able to slowly propagate its structure through standing water, adding molecules to its structure while eschewing contaminants. Thus far, the sole exception to the chemical stability of SCP-1099-A is notable reaction with sodium chloride. A sample of SCP-1099-A raised beyond a threshold salinity of 19.75% will lose both its atomic integrity and anomalous traits, becoming indistinguishable from mundane water. Samples desalinated after this process display no anomalous traits. Plus access recovery details. Recovery details. SCP-1099-A was discovered while investigating reports of an acid spring in the marshlands of. Several dozen specimens of SCP-1099-C were recovered from the area. Accidental exposure on the part of researcher revealed the presence of SCP-1099-A. Biological Containment Mobile Task Force Sigma-1, Montezuma, remains in the area in the guise of an environmental protection organization. 47% of the marshlands have been deemed secured by Task Force Sigma-1. SCP-1099-A is possessed of a transdermal quality specific to living human tissue. Plants watered with SCP-1099-A show no anomalous traits. Marine life introduced to pure SCP-1099-A live only for a short time, displaying symptoms and cause of death consistent with hyperoxia. Living non-human mammals exposed experience discomfort and hair loss at the exposure site with no further effects. Non-living tissues tested thus far have been unaffected. Upon contact with and absorption by living human tissue, SCP-1099-A causes a consistent exposure syndrome by means yet to be determined by Foundation scientists. In most cases, swift application of salinated water halts symptoms. Treated exposure areas may still experience infection, scarring, and necrosis of the exposed area. Progression record of SCP-1099-A exposure syndrome. Experiment D1099-003. Observed by Dr. M. Gomez, Area 25 Medical Director. 0 hours, 0 minutes, and 0 seconds. Controlled exposure applied. 0 hours, 0 minutes, and 15 seconds. Immediate exposure area experiences skin inflammation and swelling externally similar to blunt force trauma. Pain. 0 hours, 1 minute, and 25 seconds. Localized muscle spasms. Increased swelling and discoloration. Deeper pain. 0 hours, 2 minutes, and 11 seconds. Edges of exposed area begin showing signs of tissue deterioration. Pain. Sweating. 0 hours, 6 minutes, and 45 seconds. Increased spasming. Increased necrosis at edges of exposure area. Epidermal splitting. Blackout. 0 hours, 7 minutes, and 35 seconds. Spasms in exposure area become organized edges of exposure area now distinct from body. Bleeding. Further necrosis. 0 hours, 9 minutes, and 12 seconds. Exposure area works its way free of the body. Deepened necrotic avulsion injuries exposing bone and tendon. Severe hemorrhage. Exposure areas which successfully separate themselves from the exposed are designated SCP-1099-B. SCP-1099-B is a self-directed amount of human tissue. When free, the tissue will begin crawling, not unlike an earthworm or maggot, directly in the direction of the nearest source of fresh water. Specimens have thus far shown no ability to sense their surroundings or defend themselves. Specimens contained in a sealed chamber with no access to fresh water will crawl in circles and eventually cease activity, being overtaken by necrosis. These specimens show no difference from normally decomposing human flesh. Specimens exposed to salt or high concentration saline experience spasms and cease activity, and do not reanimate upon rehydration. When a SCP-1099-B specimen encounters fresh water, it will begin bloating by wicking fresh water from its surroundings using rhythmic rolling and thrashing motions to facilitate this process. After adding a mean 50% mass, SCP-1099-B will rupture. Ruptures eject a volume of substance SCP-1099-A, followed by the emergence of one or more specimens of a unique aquatic fauna. Emergent fauna are designated SCP-1099-C. SCP-1099-C are keratin-scaled water-dwelling scavengers that share superficial traits with scale worms. These worms have rudimentary mouths, parts used to eat small bits of rotted meat and flotsam, beginning with the remains of the flesh they emerged from. Specimens dissected show an internal structure resembling a nudibranch, and no reproductive organs. SCP-1099-C specimens breathe through their skin, outputting SCP-1099-A as a waste product. Genetic testing displays human DNA matching the initial donor of SCP-1099-B. The largest SCP-1099-C specimen on record is 6 meters long and approximately 8 centimeters in circumference. Log 1099-D005. The smallest specimen on record is approximately 3 centimeters long. Log 1099-D002.